my 18-year-old farmhand. He was just supposed to help around the ranch, nothing more. 18, full of life and with that untamed spark in his eyes that reminded me of the wild horses we raised. I told myself to keep my distance, to act like the responsible man I was supposed to be. But every day, under that scorching sun, watching him work with his sleeves rolled up and his skin glistening with sweat, it became harder to ignore what was building inside me. And then, one late afternoon, as the sky turned crimson and the air grew heavy with unspoken tension, he stayed back after everyone left. His eyes met mine across the stable, and for the first time, neither of us looked away. You won't believe what happened next. If you're ready for a story that explores forbidden feelings, emotional struggle, and the courage to face desire, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is a journey you won't want to miss. The day he arrived at the ranch, everything changed, though I didn't see it at first. His name was Ryan, freshly 18, tall and lean, with messy dark blonde hair that caught the sunlight like strands of gold. His jeans were torn at the knees, boots scuffed, and his white t-shirt clung to him in a way that made it hard to focus on anything else. I told myself he was just another summer worker, here to earn a paycheck and move on. But deep down, I knew from the first handshake that nothing about this was going to be simple. "Morning, sir," he greeted me that day, his voice carrying that raw confidence only youth can afford. His eyes, blue and wild like the open skies, met mine directly. No hesitation, no fear. I nodded, trying to keep my distance. "It's just Liam," I corrected him. "We don't do sir around here." A slight grin crossed his lips. "All right, Liam," he repeated slowly, as if testing how my name felt on his tongue. And right there, in that ordinary moment, something shifted. For the next few weeks, I did everything I could to avoid the thoughts creeping into my mind. I buried myself in work, overseeing the other hands, repairing the fences, managing the horses. But every time I turned a corner, there he was, shirt damp with sweat, muscles tense as he loaded hay bales or wrestled stubborn horses into their pens. It wasn't just his looks. It was the way he moved, the easy confidence in his walk, the way he'd flash me a grin that felt like a challenge. I tried to ignore it. God knows I tried. One afternoon, a storm rolled in. The sky darkened and rain poured down in thick sheets. Most of the workers headed home early, but Ryan stayed behind. I found him alone in the stables, brushing down my favorite mare, Juniper. "You should have left with the others," I told him, standing just inside the doorway, watching the rain flood the dirt paths outside. He didn't turn around. "Didn't want to." His voice was low, almost lost beneath the sound of the rain. "Besides, I like the quiet here, and the company." I swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling somewhere deep inside me. When he finally turned to face me, his t-shirt was soaked, clinging to every inch of his body. His hair dripped rainwater onto his forehead, and his eyes, God, those eyes, locked on mine with a heat that made the air between us feel electric. "You ever think about things you shouldn't?" he asked suddenly, his voice rough and unsteady. I took a step closer, my boots sinking slightly into the muddy floor. "Every damn day," I admitted before I could stop myself. The moment stretched, thick with everything unspoken. Then he took a slow step toward me, his eyes never leaving mine. And that's when it happened. He reached up, brushing his wet hair back, his fingers trembling ever so slightly. I could feel it, the tension, the pull between us. But before I could say or do anything, the lightning flashed, and the power went out, plunging the barn into darkness. His voice came through the dark, soft and hesitant. "Liam?" And I realized, this was the moment everything could change. For a few seconds, the world was nothing but the sound of rain pounding against the roof and my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. The air felt thick, charged with something I couldn't explain. "Ryan?" I called softly, my eyes adjusting to the dim light filtering through the cracks in the wooden walls. "Over here," his voice answered, barely above a whisper, closer than I expected. I turned, and suddenly he was right in front of me, his face illuminated by a faint flash of lightning outside. His eyes searched mine, uncertain but brave enough to stand there, waiting for whatever came next. I should have turned away, walked out, done the responsible thing. But there was something in his expression, something raw and unguarded that held me there like gravity. "You ever wonder?" he started, his voice low and steady despite the tension between us. "If maybe some things are supposed to happen, even if they scare the hell out of you?" I felt my chest tighten. "Every damn day," I admitted again, my words heavier this time, weighted with everything I'd been trying to suppress. He took another slow step forward, closing the last bit of distance between us. I could smell the rain on his skin, see the way his lips parted slightly, like he was about to say something but didn't quite know how. "I shouldn't feel this way," he confessed, his voice trembling now, almost lost beneath the storm. "But I do, and I don't know what to do with it." Before I could respond, his fingers brushed against my hand, barely a touch, but it felt like a spark shot through my entire body. My instincts screamed to pull away, but my heart wouldn't let me. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. "If you say it, I swear I'll walk away." But the words wouldn't come. My mind was a mess of reasons why this was wrong, why I was older, why I should be the one with control, but none of them made it past my lips. Instead, I reached out, my fingers gently finding his jaw. He leaned into my touch like he'd been waiting for it all his life. His breath caught, and for a heartbeat, we just stood there. Two souls lost in a storm, standing at the edge of something neither of us could define. Then, slowly, as if afraid the moment would shatter if he moved too fast, he tilted his head, his lips brushing mine in the faintest kiss. It was barely there, a question more than a statement, a test to see if I'd push him away. But I didn't. I pressed back, just enough to feel the warmth of his mouth against mine. The kiss deepened, and with it, everything I'd been fighting broke free. For a moment, there was no storm, no ranch, no difference in age or status. Just us, tangled up in emotions too big to hold back anymore. When we finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine, both of us breathing hard like we'd just crossed some invisible finish line. "I've wanted that for weeks," he admitted, his voice unsteady but honest. "So have I breathed out, the confession hanging heavy in the air between us. Outside, the rain began to ease, but inside that barn, the storm had only just begun. And in that fragile, breathless silence, one question hung over us both: what happens now? The next morning felt unreal, like waking up from a dream you're not sure actually happened. But the taste of it was still on my lips, the weight of his forehead against mine, the desperate way we clung to each other in the dark. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him standing there, soaked from the storm, lips parted, eyes full of questions and need. And I still hadn't answered the most important one: what happens now? By sunrise, the ranch was already alive with movement, horses stirring in their stalls, the other hands gathering near the main barn, pretending to work while sneaking glances at me like they knew something was different. And maybe it was. Maybe I was different now. I found him near the eastern fence line, working alone. His shirt was off, his back glistening with sweat even in the cool morning air. The muscles in his shoulders flexed as he hammered a loose fence post back into the ground. I stood there for a moment, just watching him. How was I supposed to go back to pretending nothing had happened when everything inside me had already crossed that line? He felt my gaze before he saw me. Slowly, he straightened, wiping his forehead with the back of his hand before turning to face me. "Morning," he said, his voice casual, but his eyes betrayed him. They searched my face like they were looking for some sign, some confirmation that he hadn't imagined last night either. "Morning," I answered, my voice rougher than I intended. We stood in silence for a beat too long. Then he shifted his weight and looked down, scuffing the dirt with the toe of his boot. "About last night," he started, his voice hesitant. "Ryan?" I cut him off, stepping closer before I could second-guess myself. "I can't lie to you. I've been trying to fight this, trying to convince myself that I'm supposed to be the responsible one here. But every time I look at you..." I shook my head, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might split my chest open. "I don't know how to pretend anymore." His expression softened, his shoulders relaxing just a little. "Then don't," he said quietly. The simplicity of those words hit me harder than I expected, as if it really could be that easy. Stop pretending, stop running from what we both felt. But before either of us could say more, a sharp voice rang out from the main house. "Liam, you're needed at the front gate!" It was Marcus, the ranch manager. His tone was off, urgent and tight. I glanced back at Ryan. "Stay here," I told him, and jogged toward the house, my mind already racing. At the gate stood a black SUV with tinted windows, out of place for this side of the country. A man in a tailored suit stepped out, his expression cold and unreadable. "You Liam Carter?" he asked, his tone clipped. "Yeah. Who's asking?" He reached into his pocket, flashing a badge I didn't quite catch before tucking it away just as fast. "I need to ask you a few questions about one of your workers, Ryan Miller." My stomach dropped. "What kind of questions?" "That's classified for now. Just tell me, has he mentioned anything unusual? Has he asked you for help?" My mind was spinning. Ryan? The same kid who'd stood in front of me last night, so open and vulnerable? Before I could answer, my eyes drifted back toward the fence line where Ryan had been just minutes ago. He was gone. I didn't wait for explanations. My boots hit the dirt hard as I sprinted back toward the fence line. Panic clawed at my chest with every step. The spot where Ryan had stood just minutes before was empty, the tools he'd been using scattered on the ground. "Ryan!" I shouted, my voice cracking against the open fields. Nothing, just the wind pushing through the tall grass and the distant whinny of horses unsettled by something I couldn't see. I searched the horizon, my eyes landing on the old trail leading toward the river. Without thinking, I took off in that direction. My mind raced with questions. Why would he run? What could he possibly be hiding? I found him by the riverbank, sitting on a fallen tree, his elbows resting on his knees, head hanging low. When he heard my footsteps, he didn't look up. "Ryan?" I approached carefully, my breath still uneven from the run. "I knew they'd find me eventually," he muttered, his voice barely audible above the sound of the water. I stood there, trying to process what he'd just said. "Ryan, what the hell is going on?" He lifted his head, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw real fear in his eyes. Not the nervous tension of last night. This was something deeper, heavier. "I didn't come here just for a job," he admitted, his voice breaking. "I was running. From them. From my father." I frowned. "Your father? The guy in the suit back there? He's connected to your family?" Ryan nodded slowly. "My father's a powerful man. The kind of man who doesn't take no for an answer. He spent my entire life trying to turn me into someone I'm not. When I turned 18, I left. Took nothing but a backpack and hit the road. I thought if I disappeared, I could finally be free." My stomach tightened. "Free from what?" He stood then, facing me fully, his eyes glossy but defiant. From his expectations. From the life he planned for me. From being someone I'm not allowed to be. I didn't need to ask what he meant. I already knew. That look in his eyes last night, the hesitation, the fear, it all made sense now. I'm tired, Liam, he confessed. Tired of running, tired of hiding who I am. But I can't go back. I won't. I took a step closer, closing the space between us. You're not going back, I said firmly. Not unless you choose to. But you don't have to face this alone anymore. He stared at me for a long moment, his breathing uneven. Then, in a broken whisper, he said, Why do you even care? My hand found his shoulder before I could think better of it. Because you're not just some kid working my ranch. Because you matter to me. And whether I'm ready to admit how much or not, I'm done pretending too. He leaned into me then, his forehead resting against my chest as his shoulders shook with quiet sobs. I held him there, my arms wrapping around his trembling frame, my heart breaking for everything he'd carried alone. The sound of tires crunching gravel broke the moment. The SUV had followed me down the path. Ryan's body stiffened in my arms. We'll figure this out, I whispered against his hair. Together. But as the suited man stepped out of the vehicle, eyes locked on us, I couldn't help but wonder if that promise would be enough. The man from the SUV approached with slow, deliberate steps, his shoes sinking slightly into the damp earth by the riverbank. Ryan stiffened against me, his fingers curling into the fabric of my shirt like he was holding on for dear life. Ryan, the man called, his voice calm but edged with authority. You've had your little adventure. It's time to come home. Ryan turned his head, his cheek still pressed against my chest. His voice came out barely above a whisper. I'm not going back. The man's eyes flicked to me, calculating, assessing. And who exactly are you? He asked, his tone sharp. I straightened, keeping Ryan close. Someone who doesn't appreciate people showing up uninvited on his land, I shot back. The man gave a humorless smile. I'm Thomas Sinclair, Ryan's legal guardian until certain obligations are fulfilled. Ryan pulled away just enough to look at him directly. You mean until I take over the business and live the life you planned for me? He snapped. I'm done, Thomas. I told you that when I left. Thomas sighed like he was dealing with a stubborn child. Ryan, you have responsibilities, a family legacy. Running off to play cowboy doesn't change who you are or what's expected of you. Maybe not, Ryan said, his voice shaking but firm. But it changes what I want to be. Thomas took a step closer, his expression darkening. This little rebellion will pass. It always does. Come with me now, and we'll pretend this never happened. I felt a surge of anger rise in my chest. He's not going anywhere he doesn't want to go, I said firmly, stepping slightly in front of Ryan. Thomas narrowed his eyes. Be careful, Mr. Carter. This isn't your fight. Ryan's hand found mine, his grip tight and unyielding. It is his fight. Because for the first time in my life, I found something real, and I'm not walking away from it. For a long, tense moment, no one spoke. The river rushed quietly beside us, the only sound cutting through the heavy silence. Thomas exhaled slowly, pulling a card from his pocket and holding it out toward me. When he's ready to stop playing games, you know where to find me. I didn't take the card. Thomas dropped it onto the ground at my feet, turned without another word, and walked back to his car. We stood there, unmoving, until the sound of the SUV faded into the distance. Ryan let out a long, shaky breath, his shoulders slumping like the fight had drained everything out of him. Are you okay? I asked softly, my hand still gripping his. He nodded, but his eyes glistened with unshed tears. I've never stood up to him like that before. You did good, Ryan, I said, pulling him back into my arms. You're stronger than you think. For a while, we stayed like that. No words, no explanations. Just the two of us holding on to something fragile but real. And as the sun dipped lower on the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink, I knew this was far from over. But for the first time, neither of us was running. That night, the ranch felt different, calmer. Or maybe it was just me, finally breathing after weeks of holding everything inside. Ryan and I sat out on the porch long after the others had gone to bed, the cool night air settling over us like a blanket. He leaned back in the old rocking chair, his legs stretched out, his hands resting in his lap. For the first time, his posture wasn't tense. There was a quiet peace on his face, though his eyes still held that distant storm, like he wasn't sure how long this calm would last. You ever think we're just fooling ourselves? He asked, his voice low, eyes fixed on the dark horizon. I turned my chair to face him, elbows resting on my knees. About what? About this. He waved a hand between us. Like, maybe it's just some summer thing, some wild idea that'll burn out as fast as it started. I studied him in the soft moonlight, his features delicate but defined, his jaw tight like he didn't believe a word he was saying. Ryan, I've lived through enough summers to know when something's real, I said quietly. And whatever this is, it's not going anywhere unless we let it. He looked at me then, really looked at me. And for the first time, I saw something beyond fear in his expression. Hope. Do you really believe that? He asked, almost afraid to trust it. I stood and moved to sit on the edge of his chair, close enough to feel the warmth of his body against mine. I don't just believe it, I whispered, brushing his hair back gently. I know it. His breath hitched as I leaned closer, my lips grazing his. There was no hesitation this time, no uncertainty, just the quiet understanding that whatever happened tomorrow, this moment belonged to us. The kiss deepened, slow and full of everything we hadn't said out loud. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine, his breathing uneven. I'm scared, he admitted in a shaky whisper. So am I confessed, my thumb tracing the line of his jaw. But sometimes the scariest things lead to the best parts of life. He let out a soft, shaky laugh, his fingers threading through mine. Promise me something, he said. Anything. Don't let me run again, even if I try. I squeezed his hand gently. You're not going anywhere, Ryan. Not if I have anything to say about it. The night stretched on, and we stayed like that until the sky began to lighten, the promise of a new day breaking over the horizon. And as the first rays of sunlight painted the ranch in gold, I knew, whatever challenges came next, we'd face them together. Because love, no matter how unexpected or complicated, was worth every risk.